So hi, I'm Christoph from IPDX, and we developed a technology to decode the immune system to develop life-saving medical diagnostics and therapeutics. So the challenge that IPDX is attacking is to deliver a deeper understanding of the immune system to help diagnose and treat disease. So IPDX developed a technology to systematically categorize the immune response to understand precisely how it detects and fights disease. So we use this data to develop both diagnostic and therapeutic products. We've developed the core technology. However, you can say it's cumbersome, it's slow. So really what we're doing is we're enhancing the current technology, which really means we're decreasing the time it takes, we're decreasing the cost it takes, and we're increasing its capabilities. Yeah, so with our technology, one of our first use cases that we are working with is diabetes. So with the Green ICT project, we were looking for Norwegian partners with an expertise in the diabetes space. So with that, we're partnered up with Oslo University Hospital as well as Oslo Diabetes Research Center. They have decades of experience in diabetes. They have blood samples, they have expertise in this disease area. So they were an optimal partner for us to find. Currently, we're analyzing blood samples, and we could probably analyze hundreds of samples every few months. However, with the help of this project, we will take this throughput up to thousands of samples every month or so. So what this does is it really provides us with a tipping point for our immune data. And this data can then be mined to identify new correlations and discover new insights for new diseases and populations, which of course will lead to new medical innovations. With our technology, we'll deliver a comprehensive analysis of diabetic patients with our Norwegian partners. And this is with the end goal to really help diagnose and treat patients with high accuracy. So when you think about healthcare, there is really one primary buzzword. It's precision medicine. And what this means is that the right patient will get the right drug at the right time. And we believe an understanding of the immune response is really key to solving these problems. This means that understanding the immune response will help in the early detection of disease, which in many cases, the earlier a disease is diagnosed, the easier and cheaper it is to treat. So in the end, we believe IPDX is really making strides in accelerating the path to precision medicine.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a quick snack and you're ready to continue because our next speaker is already on stage. Anari Lilleoja is the Green ICT Programme Manager at Enterprise Estonia. She will give you an overview of the Open Call for Welfare Technology Small Grant Scheme. Please, Anari, the stage is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for staying tuned. As Oliver already indicated, I'm Anari. I work in Enterprise Estonia as a program manager for the Green ICT program. I have a pleasure to give you a short overview of the current call, which is the last call under the Green ICT. So I hope that you find it interesting, and we invite everybody to participate. When we add a bit of program context here, it's important to emphasize once more what's the aim of the program. So as discussed in the morning session, the aim of the Green ICT program is to support companies to tackle challenges that green and digital transformation has given us or is making us to deal with. Also, innovation is important. In this situation, the program aims to create more value to Estonian companies in their activities today, and also to support the sustainable growth in Estonia's private sector. The key word of the program is cooperation. So we aim to develop also a long-term innovation-led cooperation and partnerships in the program. So this is about bringing together competence and knowledge, also experience from Estonia and Norway. The small grant scheme, as I said, it's ongoing, it's opened already. We focus on small and medium-sized companies from Norway, from Estonia. If we speak about application in the program, then it's important to know that application can be submitted by Estonian company, providing that you have sufficient competence involved in the projects. Please be aware that welfare technology call, you need to involve at least one end user representative to the program. Overall, we are expecting projects both from green industry innovation and welfare technology. So a bit of call details. It's opened already. You have time to prepare for more than a month now, until January 17th. So this is the end date of the application. Please be reminded that you cannot start your project activities before Enterprise Estonia has made a positive financing decision to your project, which means that project activities can be implemented starting from the May next year. You have 2 years time to implement the project, and grant provided for one project is from 50,000 up to 200,000 euros. And the call budget is 20.6 million euros, but this is constantly changing number, as we already have some project ending, and we might be able to increase the call budget with the remainders from the ended projects already. So application is in the Register of Structural Assistance. We call it e-toetus or e-support information system. It's a ID card and mobile ID based login. The information system is in Estonian, but when you apply for Green ICT, then you see that the application there is bilingual. So it's a bit of tackling, maybe starting your route in the information system. Please be aware that application is also open for e-residents, for example. Important thing is that the company applying is registered in Estonia. For e-residents, it's important to use the ID card or mobile ID as well. So this is a necessary thing to have before starting an application. When we speak about who can apply, then the program itself is targeted mainly to the SMEs. SMEs means small and medium-sized companies in Estonia. Large companies are not restricted, or they can also apply. Important thing is that applicant company cannot have more than 25% of public ownership. So it has to be a private entity. When we speak about partners, you might remember from the panel that we spoke about the partnerships, collaboration, which is one of the keywords of the program, which means that you should try to find as much competence and experience from the market as possible. That includes Estonia and Norway. So be clever and try to find partners from Norway, for example. Partners, therefore, can be all legal entities registered in Estonia and Norway, which means companies, but also universities and foundations, clusters. So partners can be anyone who can give you a valuable input to your implementation and also result-wise. When we speak about eligible activities in the context of welfare technology, this grant enables you to do a lot of developments. It's not about uptake of new technologies, it's about creating new ones. It's creating new ones in the sense of product, service, and process developments in ICT and welfare sector companies. So if you think of this, you see that the applicant company here can be either ICT or welfare company. But the activities that will be supported under this program should foster development of new solutions in welfare technology. This is one of the examples of what has been supported so far, and also what is being continuously supported under the welfare technology. It's personalized medicine. So it's solutions for hospitals, it's solutions for primary care, for example, or finding new innovative ways to simplify patients' journey, customer journey. So also, as again discussed in the panel, you might have heard that there are great examples already which are targeted to collecting data. There's a lot of data in welfare system or health system, daily data that needs to be analyzed, collected, analyzed, and then standardized. So we can use it for making assumptions or results-based decisions. So this is always also one of the focus activities under the welfare technology. So personalized medicine, again. Application documents. When you start to prepare your project, then please be aware that we encourage you to think through the things you want to do. As Magnar also emphasized before, it's important to know what to do and to be ready to put the solution into the market after the project ends. When applying, we invite you to submit a project plan where you explain the essence of the project, activities, finances, the budget related activities. Again, it's also about applicants and partners, both. So project plan is a consolidated document in that sense. Cash flow prognosis is important because we want to make sure that you have thought things through yourself first, how to make money in the future, because this is business development. We need you to submit us balance sheet and income statement so that we can check how the business have been current year, also before, and to make sure that you have gathered a maximum amount of capacity or competence in your project. We will also check the project team CVs. So think about technology, think about ICT, communication, marketing, and the sales. Marketing and sales activities are not supported, but to make sure that you have understood the market potential there, we also need you to include the CVs of the company team players that are dealing with these matters in the future. Also, communication plan. It's interesting that part of the Norway grants, you need to communicate yourself to the public. That means that you need to understand who are you focusing to, who are your future clients, who are the target groups, and what makes it a better chance to communicate yourself for the benefits of your future solution. So as the aim is to go to the market and be very successful, then it's a good chance to start communication activities from the early start. Communication activities actually include putting together a web page where you communicate again the project activities, who are the contacts if media wants to comment or write an article about your solution. We have provided several templates and guidelines. Please check them from the Green ICT Programme website. You see two website addresses on the slide, and first of which is in Estonian, and the second one in English. So if you want to share some information also to your Norwegian partners, for example, then they can check the English site. So information there is accurate and the same. We strongly believe that this program gives Estonian companies a better place or better future in the market. So we really hope that you will be successful with your future solutions. But we also have some requirements for your future results. So we do expect that this grant increases your annual growth in net operational profit. Also, we want to see an increase in your turnover. And the best way to stimulate the market is to increase number of new jobs. So this is also a requirement for you to achieve. It doesn't have to be tens and hundreds of new jobs. What it takes to be successful here is to create a couple of new jobs that you are intending to go to market with. Solution developers, for example, or ICT-related competence. So this is also important. We will check actually your plans. You will reflect your estimations in the financial forecast, but we will also check it by the end of the project. So I advise you to stay quite realistic. It doesn't make sense to show a very high increase in numbers, knowing that the project covers only the development testing phase. So what happens next should be the preparation to go to the market. This is not covered by the grant, but the plan should be there, and also the financial forecast should reflect this plan. State aid is always a part of the grants given by Enterprise Estonia, and actually also Innovation Norway. All the activities that we will be supporting under the Norway grants is state aid. So what I mean is state aid regulation apply. What it means that state aid is something that will establish your aid intensity, the percentage of which your grant applies. So how much grant do you get? It depends on the size of the company and also what you want to do. So basically, if we speak about normally product development projects, then it's aid for research and development in the language of state aid. It covers staff costs. You can purchase services. You can travel. Development costs, also testing cost, materials, supplies. But the state aid is something that you need to consider because it has considerable limitations as well. So if this is a new topic for you, I strongly advise you to turn to Enterprise Estonia so we can further assist on you on that topic. Here's also quite a complicated list of the state aid used. I will not go into this today. The timeline. Applications should be submitted to the information system by January 17th. Applications will be evaluated by Enterprise Estonia. They pass rough competition within the selection committee. We provide a ranking list, and the best projects will be supported. So we will do the evaluation by April next year, and you can start to implement the projects starting from May the 1st, not before. Please also be aware that all the project activities should be ended by the end of April 2024. We always invite companies to get in touch with us because we provide assistance. We provide consultations. So if you have any questions, detailed concerning the application procedure or evaluation, or you don't quite know how to formulate the documentations, for example, or where to start, then contact me. Norwegian companies also can contact Magnar. So we provide assistance and make sure that you have all the necessary materials in place before you start applying. And I do hope that this is something that interests you because, again, this is a last call under the Green ICT Programme, and we hope a high competition on that matter. With this, I say thank you.
And we thank you, Onari. Please, audience, if you have any questions, shoot them in the chat and I'll forward them. But I'll kick it off with my own question, and it is that could you please point out the main mistakes that applicants make when they apply for the program?
The main mistakes are pretty much related to the information system. Companies that have no previous contact in applying or with the information system, they don't know really what to do because it's a bit complicated. What we do actually, I as an administrator of the information system, I can actually look and help. So what we normally do then is we get in touch, we make a Teams meeting or a physical meeting if possible, and we go through the application. Sometimes it's the missing documents. Sometimes it's about indicators, which is a technical part of the project and the application, but I would just like to remind the opportunity of having a consultation first before submitting the application. So just to avoid mistakes, plus there's a big part of saving time because we don't have to do the mingling and concerning the application documents, for example. So it's quicker and better way this way.
Okay, and the consultations are free for the companies?
Consultations are free for the companies, yes. It is normally done by me, but for those companies who already have the client manager in Enterprise Estonia, they can contact their client managers. Yeah, but also directly to me.
Okay, yes. Well, any last words, any last suggestions for the companies who want to apply for the program?
First of all, I advise to contact Enterprise Estonia. Secondly, I invite all the companies to take the chance or advantage of applying, because such a unique way of making future business this way. So, yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Onari. And next on stage is Rauno Mäekivi, who is the Digital Development Advisor at the Ministry of Social Affairs. Rauno will give you an insight into the status of the welfare technology in Estonia and will bring out the areas that need developing in the future. Please, Rauno, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Rauno Mäekivi, and I'm a Digital Development Advisor at the Ministry of Social Affairs. So today I'm going to talk to you about welfare technologies here in Estonia and what are some of the key areas that need development. So my presentation will focus on two parts. So first I will give you an overview of just a tiny glimmer where we have come from, where we are right now. And secondly, I'm going to focus on where we are heading and what are some of the opportunities there. So I will heavily be biased towards digital health, digital social welfare, since I'm a digital development advisor and this is my forte. So let's get started. So this is an overview of our journey thus far. We're mostly known for our digital development ambitions. So you can see that our journey has been about 3 decades. The first 2 decades focused heavily on getting the basic infrastructure in place, getting the digital insurance in place, getting the digital social insurance in place so we would know how many health services have been provided, in what cost, to whom, what sort of pensions have been paid out to whom, and so on, so on. In 2000s, we focused on getting the basic infrastructure more better ready. Essentially, what we created was interoperability among healthcare providers by creating a centralized electronic health record. We did something similar with actually prescriptions. We created digital prescriptions, so now all prescriptions in Estonia are digital. And in the third decade, the year from 2010 up to now, we really focused on creating services based on that basic infrastructure which we created in the past 2 decades. So, for example, since we have electronic health record and prescription data, we created a decision support system for family medicine. So if the doctor has a patient who has high blood pressure and needs periodic health checkups, like measuring the cholesterol level and so on, then the doctor will get reminders and certain warnings if there are conflicting procedures or conflicting medicine going on. A similar service could be seen as a drug co-effect service or a drug-drug interaction service. Since we have all of the prescriptions in Estonia are digital, then if you are prescribing a medicine which might have certain co-effects with some other medicine the person has, then again, here are automated warnings so that medical staff doesn't have to do too much. So, why am I bringing out this sort of historical overview? It's because this highlights very well that we have quite vast amounts of data resources that could be utilized to generate new services and new products. And not only in the government or not only public services, but also in the private sector. So we have multifactorial data. We have electronic health record data. We have prescription data. For 10 plus years. We have electronic billing data for 25 plus years. We have ambulance data for 5 plus years. We have genomic data for 20% of Estonian population. So essentially 200,000 people in Estonia have had already their genomes mapped. So we already actually have their genomic data, and they have given it to us with the purpose of helping science, but also in hopes of in the future having actually new services or new products that could utilize that data to provide them better services. We also have social welfare data for 10 plus years, and also what I didn't mention in my previous slides, we also have unemployment insurance and unemployment benefits data as well, plus other socioeconomic data also. The tricky part here in Estonia is that all of this data is quite dispersed. We tend to believe in here that the way to keep data secure and not put all our eggs in one basket is to distribute the data into different information systems and then provide an interoperability service or a data exchange layer called XD or X-Road in English between those. So on the right-hand side of my slide, you can see a nice graphic about X-Road where you have the connection between population registry and the tax board via public internet, and all of the other entities involved there cannot access that data. So in reality, X-Road would look more like something like this, like a perfect storm in a sense. You have a network of different systems interacting with each other. So here on the picture, you have in the center our electronic health record called Digilugu, and other 500 systems who do the most queries, who interact most with Digilugu. So you have healthcare providers, national information systems, and so on, so on. A similar picture for health insurance as well. So in a nutshell, looking past the technical side, what Estonia also has quite uniquely is a high public trust regarding digital solutions. So we have quite a long history of providing already digital public services, and they are provided in quite privacy-respecting and transparent way, which helps us build trust. We have a nice research community. About top 1% of genomic research is involved with Estonia, with Estonian researchers. But the same can be said about other disciplines like ICT, governance, and so on and so on. We have a relatively nice cybersecurity and privacy respect in our systems, so that we haven't had that many data breaches, only a low number and no data known leaks. The legal system, well, the legal system is always going to be rigid and always going to be difficult to change in that respect. But in Estonia, again, I believe since we're a small country, we actually have a competitive edge here with our legal system as well. So we're actually quite nimble in finding new ways how to implement new services and products. But this is all, fine and good. This is where we are, but where are we actually heading? What are some of the key areas that could need development in welfare tech? So one of the ways which we identify ourselves or our challenges is essentially that we want to become more proactive. And we mean this in a couple of different dimensions. So on the one hand side, we want to become proactive in all of the services that we provide, already with the government services as well. So that if people go through their different events in life, like having a child or retiring or even loss of a close one by death or otherwise, or losing employment or any other type of life events, then we want to consolidate all of the services, all of the interactions that the person has with the state or with the service providers. We want to consolidate it into one good package and provide it proactively. So if, for example, already now, you are about to have a child, you register the child's name. After that, we won't expect you to come and apply for a benefit in a traditional way. We will actually, like, for example, the traditional way would look like this. You would go and apply for a benefit, fill out some forms, provide some sort of proof of documents, like that you have actually the birth certificate, you have some sort of income in the past year or the past 2 years, and then they will take that form and the office will look into it for 14 or 30 days and then come back to you and say, hey, all checks out, you will get this benefit by this amount. But we don't want to do it like that way. We already in 2019 started flipping it around. So when a person has a child, registers the child's name digitally, then we will just send them an email and tell you, hey, congratulations, it's a very glamorous event you had, it's great, fascinating. So this also makes you eligible for this sort of benefit, come check it out. And when the person logs in, we will just tell them that, hey, these are the benefits you can get in this amount. Here are the calculations behind it. And just tell us 2 things. Tell us who will get the benefit. Is it you or your spouse or husband? And to what bank account shall we transfer the money? And that's it. Nothing else needed. So we want to be proactive in what we do. And we want to establish that as well in private services as well. We want to make it as seamless, as easy as possible for the average person. But also proactive in another way as well. We want to have better prevention, because we know in social care and in healthcare that better prevention is always more effective and more efficient than dealing with the consequences. So the main question for the government official like myself, the government bureaucrat, is always that how do we actually make it more cost effective? How do we do it in a cost-effective manner? So we've tried here in a couple of ways. We've done some low-tech solutions in trying to pilot or experiment with risk stratification, that perhaps we can somehow filter out people who have the higher risk of getting severe illnesses and do interventions earlier. But with all of these things, all of the screenings and risk stratifications and things which we are experimenting with, we see that low-tech solutions don't necessarily work when we want to scale it up. So it works for a handful of doctors and a small amount of patients. But if you want to implement it systematically in healthcare, then it becomes tricky. And here we actually need help in a lot of ways. So one is getting through to the patients regarding screenings. We already do different types of cancer screenings. We want to, of course, expand and do other screenings as well. But on another note, we also want to somehow figure out new innovative ways to get actually through to the person and get the person to come to the screenings and do the screenings. So here we are absolutely open for any new solutions, ideas here. We aren't doing really bad at it. We're actually doing quite decent, but there's always room for improvement. The same with risk stratification. For example, the algorithms behind how we filter out the patients. You could apply all types of different bleeding edge technologies there, like machine learning or artificial intelligence, to figure out new ways how to do it. And also on the other end of the spectrum, to make it much more effective, you need certain types of digital tools for the doctors, for the healthcare staff, as well as actually for the patient to actually fulfill the goals and do the interventions, and through that generate actually the benefit which we are trying to generate. So there are, regarding prevention, it's almost like a blank canvas. There is so many different opportunities you could actually implement here, and we're always open to hearing about new solutions and new ways how we can actually enhance it. Regarding prevention or proactiveness, we also want to become much more personalized. So the healthcare currently really relies on data which the healthcare produces or which is being produced in some other sectors. But what we already have, and what I mentioned before, we also have genomic data for about 200,000 people. We can collect it even more if we could provide some sort of service based on that data to the average person. So here we are actually working on two different areas. And these are, well, essentially part of building the actually underlying infrastructure to make healthcare much more personalized. So if we could actually put that genomic data and actually the electronic health record and prescription data, which we have to good use, then we could start building risk scores for people who have provided that data, and we could open it actually up for also the private sector to actually generate new products and services which take this information into account and provide certain benefits or interventions or some sort of service to the average person. Again, this is something which we're trying to build. We have free services in our current perspective. We want to create certain preventions for certain diseases like cardiovascular disease and breast cancer. So we could know people who are more at risk for those diseases. But we also want to implement pharmacogenomics, because we know that people with different genetic data actually have different effects for the same medicine. So one dose of medicine for me might work absolutely differently than for you, for example. And this is something which we are trying to build, the basic infrastructure underlying it. We want to build in the next year and maybe have already the training ready next year. And in the year after, we could perhaps see the first implementation of personalized medicine. But another thing where we're heading more towards is, well, this picture gives a pretty good insight. So on the one hand side, we have been for the last 3 decades building all types of different systems and technologies. And we have this, you could almost say like a very nice robot. It has pretty good capabilities, can navigate itself and collects vast amounts of data and so on. But now we have to bring back the person, the citizen, the user back into focus. And how can we use those systems that we've created to actually give the user, the citizen, the most benefit that possibly could be. And here we have a couple of different ways how we are trying to do it. So one way is we know that the government already produces a lot of different services, and I know it's true for a lot of governments in the world. You have all of these different services are provided by different entities, target different audiences perhaps, or different segments of the population. But in the end, they don't really connect to each other. So in a way, you have 2 different services, one here, one on the other, but there is something missing in between. The person might need both, but he or she doesn't necessarily get to the other end. And here we are trying to do something which is look at the pathways of the person, look at the sort of holistic pathways, end-to-end pathways. We've tried it a little bit within healthcare and social care by looking at stakeholders associated with certain diseases or medical events, like people who have stroke, for example. And there we already actually have seen that there are large technological gaps there that you could, by implementing not even perhaps bleeding edge solutions necessarily, but actually quite simple solutions like CRM or IoT solutions, you could actually gain a lot of benefit there. And again, this is something which we want to go even more in depth with it. We are definitely doing pilot projects there to map out those pathways and try out those pathways with different hospitals and municipalities. But again, we see a technological gap there, which the private sector could definitely help out with some sort of products or already existing perhaps services or even new services. The next one is kind of a painful topic for Estonia. We've generally been quite lacking in telecare, in telemedicine and stuff like that. A little bit thanks to COVID, this has gotten a kickstart, and we're definitely trying to leapfrog here. But there's still a lot of ways to go, and we're still in sort of taking baby steps here in Estonia regarding telecare. But some of the key questions here for us is always that, you know, as a government official, how do we move actually from having cheap human labor in the care sector to actually, for it to actually make sense for companies and organizations to invest in technology. Oftentimes the argument tends to seem that the technology has very strong upfront costs, very tricky sometimes return on investments. And it's pretty comfortable to go to the traditional route of just hiring more people and doing the same work. So the big question for us is, how do we move past that? How can we implement IoT solutions in care homes or at the place of residence for the person, or how do we spur new technologies and so on, so on. Again, help is much appreciated. The third part of where we are heading, in my opinion, is getting more out of data. So the old formats of how we have done things is not working. So we have tens of years of different types of records. And if you have tens of years of records, then they stack up to a quite high stack. And for a person to go through it and try to get familiar with the person, who those records are about and what is their current sort of health status and their current health summary might get tricky. So again, the systems that we have, they need to be overhauled to look something more like on the right, where we take those libraries of documents apart and actually show them on a timeline and on graphs. How is the person currently doing medically and what his or her past history or events have been. The same things with the general UX of the different softwares that healthcare providers, for example, use. Again, here there are leaps and bounds that one could make and do much more. Just another image again, if you look at the left-hand picture of creating just one prescription, then you can already in your mind perhaps hear all of the clicking going on, and there are definitely too many unnecessary clicks there. And you know, whatever ideas, solutions are always welcome by us, and you know, just contact us. And my last point, we want to make it as easy as plug and play. In the past, perhaps we have been very good at doing government-led things and creating systems based on what the government does, and the government has been leading the charge, sort of speaking. We want to perhaps make the ecosystem, expand it a little bit, and sort of integrate also the private sector and other organizations into it as well. And some of the ways which we are trying to enable this is, well, on the first hand, I've already told you about how much data we have. We have quite a lot. And always when it's the case that you have a lot of data and you have different products or services wanting to utilize that data for the person, then you run into GDPR and asking consent. Something which we are trying to remove essentially is that we want to provide a national consent platform. So this would bring all of the stakeholders there together. The systems that have the data, the entity who wants to provide a service based on that data, and the user who wants to use that service and have his or her data somehow seamlessly be integrated into that service. We want to make it easy, and this is a big project which we hope to finish next year to actually provide a consent platform nationally. So if anybody has a product or service and it wants to utilize, for example, health data, personalized health data, and the user wants to use that service, then you can seamlessly ask for the consent and keep the consent there. Another thing is that since our data is very dispersed among different systems, then we want to make it much more easy, and we want to provide you a guide. So if you want to come and dig in our data or dive into our data, then we want to provide you a diving instructor. So we're establishing a state-owned company called DigiNest, which will then work as a one-stop shop when you have any data-related projects and want to utilize our data and want to get it somehow together and in a very reasonable time frame. Then DigiNest would be the contact there who would help you actually implement that data project and get it done. Not going to go too deep into the data lake stuff because it's quite heavily discussed internationally anyway, but we're also trying to build a data lake so you could have a place where if you don't need a personalized data set, but you only need, for example, statistics about to generate statistics along and link different data sources together, then you would have a place where you could do it quite easily, quite seamlessly. So instead of having different data requests, which could take, about like a few months to up to a year, we want to give you a sort of automated process for it. So we want to create a sort of a nest where you could come and play a little bit with our data, get your result, and create some sort of new knowledge or new science based on it. So this is it from me. It has only been a glimpse, I know. I've only had 20 minutes. So if you want to get more, let's get in touch. I am available anywhere, like LinkedIn or wherever. So thank you from me.
Thank you, Rauno. I was super glad to hear that you mentioned quite a few practical examples and ideas. And if you're a sharp listener, you could pick them up and you could probably work on a lot right now. But still, for the teams looking to do something and they don't still have the good ideas, like what would you say are the top 3 most sought out solutions, services, products on the market right now, in your opinion?
What we're seeing in Estonia recently quite is, I think, something which the previous speaker also mentioned is personalized medicine. We've already seen some products come to market which use actually health data and which use actually genomic data or genetic data about the person to provide actually very good interventions or some sort of advice for the person. So we have some which try to prevent certain diseases like cancers and so on. And we have some which, we have one, for example, which tries to provide dietary advice or lifestyle changes based on those types of data. And something which we in the government really are trying to do is to open up the data to make it much more easier. So if you want to have a product and you need certain data to offer those advices to the person, then we already have certain data about the person. So perhaps you could just use the data secondarily instead of having the person fill out some sort of forms or do some sort of consultations. So one is personalized medicine. The other one is all that makes people's journey in between services easier. I know that's like a very vague or like abstract way of saying it, but again, if you look at a person's pathway between different services, which, for example, the government is providing, or different types of hospitals or social care providers are providing, then there are large gaps there. And I guess the spoiler alert here is that the government will never, ever be able to fulfill those gaps. So anything which helps the transition of the person from one service to another or create better communication between different service providers or services or products, then that's definitely another big one. And I guess the third one is we have quite a lot of systems which the government has taken quite a liberal approach that the government doesn't get involved in at all. And some of those systems are quite old. And I also had some pictures in my presentation about it as well. And that's definitely a place where one could apply themselves and provide better UX for the users.
Yeah, I've definitely seen those solutions as well. And I know what you're talking about. So if we look at the European market in general, and we thought that there are some weak points with solutions, how would you assess the current level, on European level, of health tech?
It's always going to be uneven. I mean, there are always going to be front runners in certain aspects, and And well, you have countries and you have certain aspects where one country is the front runner, and in another aspect, the country might not be the front runner, but be sort of a laggard. I mean, even in Estonia, it's honest reflection that we are behind in Telecare, for example, or telemedicine. We are a laggard in that sense, but perhaps we are, I would say, a front runner in having the electronic health record and having the interoperability among different types of services and having those type of infrastructure and systems in place. I think that's something where we are actually pretty good. So giving a sort of an overarching opinion regarding Europe, I think it's quite uneven, and that's definitely a place where using much more cooperation, not only between governments and countries themselves, but also between the private sector or the companies between different countries, that could bring much more evenness to the systems. But Europe has always been this sort of mixed bag in that sense that we have all types of different regions, and the unevenness will definitely stay there anyway.
Rauno, thank you for the insight.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'd like to welcome on stage Kristjan Männik, who is the head of business unit at Helmus, which is an international software house with headquarters in Tallinn, clients all over Europe, and development centers in Estonia and Belarus. Kristjan has been involved in Helmus' own Norway grants-funded development previously and has a lot of cooperation experience with Norwegians. So, Kristjan, please tell us more about it.
Thanks, Oliver. To start again, I'm Kristjan and I represent a company called Helmus. And this talk, I will briefly tell you about me, about my company, and share some unofficial tips for the Green ICT program. I seem to have some echo as well, so hopefully it's okay for the others. I've been working with different e-health solutions since 2007, both for public and private institutions. Also, for the past 10 years, I worked with Norwegian companies across different domains. Some of my first experience with Norwegians was with a company called Netcom, who has now become Telia Norway. Back in the day, we were building a sales and logistics solution for them, which was pretty far from the current e-health domain. Sadly, I don't speak Norwegian language, but some of my colleagues do. In the 15 years that I've had in IT, I've been a business analyst, a product manager, a solution architect, a team lead, and a key account manager, depending on the customer and the project. Helmus is one of the largest custom software development and data analytics services companies in Northeastern Europe. Our HQ is here in Tallinn, Estonia, but we also have offices in other locations in Europe. Oliver mentioned Belarus, but we are also in Latvia, for example. Our clients are in over 20 countries over the world, but mostly in EU and the Nordics. We were founded 30 years ago, around the time when Estonia got independent from Soviet Union. Today, we are more than 1,000 people. In the years, Helmus has been involved in building large blocks of the Estonian e-government. Perhaps the most known in the e-health domain are the e-prescription and the National Patient Registry. Some of our international customers include Telia, OECD, and Kuehne Nagel. But from this year on, we've started working with Airbus, for example. So we do have a long list of corporate references, but we also work with numerous startups. Our main interest here today is developing software for Green ICT funded projects. We already work together with an Estonian company called Rexplorer, and in Estonian you would call them Rexplorer. They received the Green ICT grant in the green tech domain. And what they're doing is they're building an energy planning platform for local communities. And we help create their software. You can read more about them on their website. It's a very cool idea what they're trying to do, and I recommend you check them out. If you have a great idea and continue on the Green ICT project, we'd be interested in becoming your software partner. From our side, we can bring to the table a strong health sector competence, software development experience, knowledge about different technologies, references, and due to our size, capacity. What is perhaps different to many other companies in IT is that we are very much team-focused. Helmus would typically step into a cooperation with a fully self-managed team who works closely with the product manager on your side. If you already have a development team, we can work together with them as well. We also offer individual consultants, but our DNA is building the teams. A typical Helmus team would include a tech lead, developers, business analyst, QA, and a team lead. And when we need other roles, for example, UX designer, a security expert, we include them as necessary. In the majority of the cases, the team has worked together before, and they know how to build software. One of the main KPIs for the team is customer satisfaction. So they are very interested in making you succeed. For startups, we can step in before you've built your own tech team. We can hand things over gradually as you start recruiting. But we can also support you in later phases. Typically, we don't own any IP, and we don't build products to commercialize ourselves. But there have been occasions and even successful spin-offs. 2 years ago, we, together with a Norwegian partner, participated in the Green ICT Programme, and back then it was the small grants scheme. Our idea was related to clinical decision support. And even though nothing came out of this idea, the experience itself was very good. And throughout the project, Anari and her team from Enterprise Estonia were very helpful and responsive. So whenever we had an issue, they helped us find a solution quickly. We did face some smaller challenges, and maybe the rules have changed somewhat, and maybe the things are self-explanatory. But for me, it was the first grant money that I had to apply for. So these are the tips I would give you, and I remind you, these are all unofficial tips. You should ask Anari and her team for clarifications. First, and this is what Anari also mentioned today, that be careful with timing your costs. You cannot have any costs before start of the program, which is logical. But for us, though, because we also offer software services, we needed to be very careful with timing. However, we also found that we had trouble covering some of the final month's costs. And this is because in Helmus, you pay the employment taxes the month after paying the salaries. We couldn't pay the taxes before the grant period ended, even though the work was done in the applicable period. I'm not sure if something has changed here, and perhaps it depends on the exact end date of the program. Second, we needed to work a bit to make the employee timesheets and costs counted correctly. One of the confusing factors for us was that our employee financial bonuses from other projects mixed up the base salary numbers, and Enterprise Estonia only covers the base salary numbers. I would work with Enterprise Estonia to understand how your accounting system supports correctly reporting these numbers, and if not yet, then what you need to do. And the earlier you do this in the project, the better. Third, if you want to include subcontractors, then from a certain level upwards, you need to do a tender. Back then, this was from 5,000 euros, but maybe the limits have changed. So, for example, if you have previously worked with a favorite UX design company, then now you'd have to have a tender to choose one. So there need to be several competitors in order for you to have eligible costs. Fourth, if you have an international cooperation, try to fit in at least one face-to-face meeting into every 3-month period. Fly to a complicated workshop, discuss cooperation, and go out to have a dinner together. 1 to 2 days is often enough. The flight was, and I guess it still is, an eligible cost for the grant. Being together physically helps for good long-term cooperation. Flying isn't the greenest of activities, so I personally wouldn't do it more than once a quarter. To reiterate, overall the experience was very pleasant and manageable, even without getting any external consultants on board. And with or without Helmus, I think this program provides fantastic opportunity for Norwegian and Estonian companies to work together. I personally like working with Norwegians a lot, and I think there's a great fit between Norwegians and Estonians. And the combination of work ethics, pragmatism, and good humor is a good match to have. we had a very good match with our Norwegian partner in the Green ICT Programme. To talk to me about cooperation now or a more distant future, you can reach me in the chat or drop me an email at christian@helmus.com. Thanks. Back to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Christian. I definitely picked up some tips and tricks from your presentation, so I'm really thankful. I think the companies listening in got the same. At the beginning of today's event, we discussed about making partnerships with Estonian and Norwegian companies. And I know you have a lot of experience doing these partnerships. So what kind of recommendations would you give to welfare technology companies in finding and creating these long-lasting relationships, partnerships?
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question, Oliver. And my experience comes from software development. So I've been involved in many scenarios where we as Helmus provide software for the companies, but it applies to many other things as well. So this thing I mentioned about seeing face-to-face once in a while, I think this would be the top one recommendation I would give. And this has been difficult in the COVID times. Get together once every 3 months, maybe even once in every 6 months, and discuss difficult things, but most of all, do something social together. So that's the tip number one. Second, no matter what method you use for the cooperation, in the beginning, if you are a new partnership, do something what we in Helmus call ways of working workshop. Don't try to solve everything in the contract. Contracts are quite rigid structures. Rather, get together, figure out how you communicate, how you escalate, how you measure success, and so on. And it can be a living document, but always do this one workshop. And third, if you do software and if you do software internationally, keep it simple and use something standard. So you use Scrum, use Kanban, or some companies have in-house development methods. Don't try to invent the wheel and don't try to overcomplicate things.
Wow, thank you. That was really insightful. I have only one last question that I personally always wanted to ask a fellow software developer. How do you look at events and conferences? What's your strategy approaching conferences?
Mm-hmm. I think for conferences, it's important to be on the stage. So I guess both you and I are on stage today, so we have succeeded in this conference.
Indeed. Yeah, well, thank you. And Christian, all the good insights. I think we got some really nice things out of this presentation. So thank you again, sincerely.
Thanks, Oliver.
Dear audience, we've reached the part that I've actually also really been looking forward to, the pitching session. Each company that's coming on stage has 3 minutes time to introduce themselves, the story of their company, and also after the presentation, answer some of your questions. So use that opportunity well, write your questions down in the chat, and I'll see to it that the companies get these questions. So first off, I'd like to invite on stage Motitech. Motitech is a company established in 2013 as a Norwegian company behind Motiview, a motivational tool that stimulates older people and people with dementia to increase physical and mental social well-being. We're glad to have Roald Kvam, Senior Manager and Advisor here. Oh, really sorry for me. I did a little bit wrong presentation that we actually have OpenHead here on stage, and we have Kleng Bratveit waiting actually to do the presentation. OpenHead actually builds tools to visually share research policy and governance data. So, Kleng, sorry for that, but please, the floor is yours and tell us more about you.
Hear me? Good seeing you, everyone. Hi from Oslo. It's a little bit gray day today, but else, we're moving into Christmas time, so we're looking forward to moving into the houses. Okay, so we're OpenHead. We're a small organization. We work on sharing data, and we're engaged in maybe 10 different EA grant projects ongoing, where we would take typically responsibility for the international cooperation. So bringing in Norwegian learnings and partner the project learnings into back to Norway, and we will also engage in the communication activities and research dissemination. So different phases. Me, I'm a father of 3 children, and when I met my wife, we bought the sailboat and we started sailing around the world. So that was a bit of an adventure, and this boat has a particular story. And so I feel very connected to Estonia. In fact, the boat was originally named the Lennuk, which means the silver vessel. And it was the first sailboat to circumnavigate the globe with an Estonian crew. So we're hoping this summer maybe to be able to come and visit with Lennuk to Tallinn. The new adventure now, however, is data. How can we share data? And we find that in quite a few of our partnerships, the applicant will have the domain competence in energy conservation or in governance, but sometimes they're lacking the skill set to sort of share this information in a modern way. And so we engage in projects as a partner to do the communication part and be the Norwegian partner. I would also maybe invite you to make use of our network of organizations. So we invite you to make contact with us, and we're happy to connect you with the Norwegian partners with the competence that you are looking for. So you will find my contact details here just on the side. Is it maybe this side or this side? With the telephone number and an email. And please drop an email and tell us what you're looking for. And we're happy to try to connect you to a Norwegian partner or potential partners. And if it so happened that what we offer would be also useful in your project, we're happy to engage ourselves. So I think with that said, that's all. So good luck with your project proposal, and we would be happy to help you to connect you to a Norwegian partner.
Thank you, Kling. Good, nice, practical go-to. So I hope people contact you and try to get these partnerships. And I have a question, because you're experienced in the field. I'd like to know what kind of welfare technology projects have you done with different companies and SMEs? Could you tell us more?
I used to work in central government in the field of modernization. So I was in central government working on ICT policies, and we were very much looking to what was happening elsewhere. We would say that innovation is as much about adaptation as of making things new. So we would look to what others are doing. I was always finding this sort of a little bit on the defensive. So I'm very happy that we're now seeing funds that also are inviting for newer technologies and to explore new ways of serving citizens. And we would just be happy to sort of engage with those applicants that have the greatest ideas and is daring in trying new things.
Thank you, Kling. I definitely hope people will contact you and see to it. Thank you. Now, up next, the company I started introducing at first, but let's go with it. They actually have an interesting video coming up, Motitech. As I said, it's a motivational tool that stimulates older people and people with dementia to increase physical, mental, and social well-being. We're super glad to have Roald Kvam, the Senior Advisor and Acting Manager of Motitech Nordic, here to talk us more about Motitech. So please, Roald, the stage is yours and ready to play the video.
Every day when she's been on the bike, she tells you about somewhere else she's been.
California,
Switzerland,
Singapore,
Rome,
Israel.
This is Jean. Come park your bottom here. Let's pop you in. All right, my love. Okay. We're going to go to Hong Kong today. How about Italy?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
All right, we're off.
Okay.
I come up here to do 30 minutes and they put the film on, and each time I try and do more. I want to tell the people to get out of the way, we're coming.
When coming into a care home, typically people become very inactive. The inactivity would be the reason for rapid health decline, more than actual age itself.
Judith, make sure he behaves himself now, sat on this bike.
A piece of technology like this will really help in terms of exercise. So exercise is generally going to be good for keeping your limbs moving.
It's been really extraordinary to see my mother change, because 3 years ago she was pretty much bedridden, and to see her now exercising on a daily basis like this is extraordinary.
I was in a wheelchair at one point, then I graduated to a walker. The next thing, it'd been the marathon.
What really makes this different is that the videos in front of the bike is actually the key here. We build a video library, almost like a Netflix model, so people could choose go traveling, or they could find their local memories.
I'm seeing places that I should never go to, which makes it even more interesting.
You can visit places where they were born, places they might have visited as a child, and obviously then they engage in a conversation.
This is really important for a resident with dementia, being able to go back in memories, revisiting places.
The cycling initiative created by Motitech is a great piece of technology that helps those with dementia. At AXA, we run the Health Tech and You Awards, and last year we had 2 incredible winners in the category Innovations in Early Diagnosis of Dementia. All of the innovations we're seeing in dementia care are really exciting and will go a long way to improving the lives of those living with the condition.
What do you remember about Muddyford?
It was really rather nice, actually.
Yeah, lovely beach.
Yes.
When I met Anne, she was a very, very scared lady. Not great at making friends. So when we introduced Anne to the bike, it was like seeing a different lady. Did you ever used to walk down this road?
Did you?
Such a massive change in her confidence. She just can't wait to get down here and then mix with the other residents as well, which 3 months ago, I would never have believed.
Oh, well done. We've reached the pub, Anne.
Even residents that I thought would never, ever dream of getting on this bike are actually enjoying it, which is fabulous.
This is keeping me in trim, but I haven't done much today at all. I've been chatting too much.
Roald, that was an amazing video. It was awesome to see how much fun the elderly people were having there using your solution. Just want to ask you that maybe you want to add something extra to the video. So please, anything you want to add after seeing this video?
Oh, I just agree. It's pure joyful journey. We've been doing this since 2013. And actually, we have the world's only and first road worlds for seniors, which we have each and every year. And everyone that has MotiveView can participate for free. And this year, we had over 5,000 participants from 11 countries, paddling 155,000 kilometers in 4 weeks. That's 4 times around the globe. So it's possible to do something about the inactivity in the care homes or the home care services with pretty simple, easy, but solid welfare tech from Norway.
That's amazing. I think a lot of care homes here in Estonia would be really interested in this as well. Could you tell us what kind of developments are you planning in Motitech Nordic for the next few years?
In the prod side, tech side of it, or our journey side of it?
I'd say, what's the bigger picture for you guys? Where are you heading, development-wise and bigger picture-wise as well?
We started in the care homes, and we are going to stay in the care homes, but also we are doing a shift now as the care sector is. There will be more and more need of kind of home care services, and also preparing the consumer market for how can we stay healthy as long as possible in our own homes. And to do that, we need people and we need tech. So our plan is to take this globally, actually, both in the care sector and home care services and B2C. And we are going to Estland and Latvia and Lithuania as well. So that's why we're here today, just to say, hey, we are on the globe, and we need contacts and we need learnings. So that's why we're here today.
That's great, and I think you're on the right path with that. Thank you again for the video. Thank you for the input.
Thank you.
And our next presenter will be co-nurse. Co-nurse provides a safety net and protocol adherence platform for healthcare staff, patients, and family members. By combining accessible and actionable clinical and nursing content at the point and time of care, we improve patient safety, care quality, and job engagement for nurses while mitigating the risk for adverse events, burnouts, and avoidable costs in healthcare. Presenting to you today is the CEO of co-nurse, Andres Melik. And Andres, please, the stage is yours.
Should also have the slides up and running. But in short, I can already get started. So we're Cognius, we're a digital health company, and we've been active since 2011. And the problem we're solving actually is the number one cost driver for hospitals worldwide, and it has to do with medical errors and unwarranted care variation. And basically, we're talking about avoidable costs within the hospitals that the hospitals cannot get back from the insurance companies. And in order to address this, the hospital and other healthcare facilities around the world are creating loads and loads of guidance documents, protocols, checklists, and so on. And the main problem with that content is that it's inaccessible and non-actionable when and where needed. So we basically set out to mainly solve that problem and help the patient safety, care quality, and avoidable cost issues along the way. And our platform basically is divided into two parts. So the first one is the content management system, both for protocols and equipment and various other things that transforms this guidance into something actionable and accessible at the point and time of care. And then there's a point of care application, essentially usable on any smartphone, iOS, Android, and so forth, that will deliver the particular guidance to the nursing staff, caregivers, as well as physicians. Additionally, what we do, and the types of partners we're looking for from Norway, in addition to hospitals and healthcare providers, is also medical device, equipment, and consumables vendors, because we provide an easy-to-use interface for managing the whole life cycle of those medical products. So basically, you can report missing, damaged, or non-functioning equipment through the application as well, and get the exact guidance on how to use it, thus creating really a lot of value for those vendors. The application itself is super easy to use. As I mentioned, it runs on any smartphone. It can also run voice-guided for some selected languages, so that you never actually have to take it out of your pocket if you don't want to. And this is in accordance with the hygiene measures and various other things required at the hospitals. And back again to the equipment feature, So basically, we're providing with the first application that basically provides a very transparent insight into how medical equipment, devices, and consumables are used within the healthcare settings. It works as easy as scanning a QR code. We can predict life cycle insights. There is a way to provide real-time feedback and reporting, which was not previously possible, and get very direct ROI inputs, and also things like orders, purchase orders, back to the vendors as they occur on the grassroots level, meaning in practice. And again, this works in a very simple way. You're able to report equipment tickets either independently or from the procedures that the staff, namely nurses, caregivers, or physicians, are executing day to day. So from this event, we're mainly looking for hospitals and medical device vendors to collaborate to that. We already do have existing collaborations with companies like Philips. Johns Hopkins University and Medicine is one of our investors, and we have a number of sort of high-profile collaborations around the world that we could also tap into this collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you. Andres, tell me, how many institutions are already using co-nurse in their day-to-day work?
So with co-nurse, we're live in 9 different countries, and it's a total of 12 institutions. And why so spread out? The main reason is that we wanted to validate the problem and the solution in as many countries as possible, and we have already done so. So these range from the EU to Africa to South America as well to Asia.
Wow, that's amazing to hear, because I know a lot of the times health tech companies and startups are struggling to find these kind of partnerships. So would you share what's been the key to your success in getting this wide range of partnerships?
Well, first of all, it's the fact of not giving up, because we've been doing this for a long time. But also, I think we have kind of touched upon issues with some of the large healthcare IT vendors, for instance, Philips, that they are not particularly addressing. But it's a nice, for them, it's an add-on to their existing product portfolio. And so essentially we're using them as channel partners to address more and more countries. The 9 first countries we have done independently, but for instance in Poland we have a joint proposal out to the Ministry of Health with Philips.
Okay, Andres, thank you for the input.
Thank you very much, and sorry for the technical problems.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Dear audience, we've reached the finish of today's program. Once more, a big thank you and applause to all the speakers that we had on stage. And thank you behind the screens for being with us today. It has been an amazing day full of great ideas and inspiring presentations. Thank you, Enterprise Estonia and Innovation Norway, for making this webinar possible. Now, although it's the end of our program, you have free time to mix and mingle and discuss today's topics through one-on-one meetings at our workshop platform. Let me tell you once more how to book those meetings. You can see the agenda on the right side of the screen, and during the live stream, you can chat with other participants and ask questions, which we already had. You can still do it the same way, chat in the workshop platform. But how to create actually the one-on-one meetings? You can create them by starting a chat with the people who have entered the platform under the participants. And you can start the chat there by choosing send a message from the person's profile. You can see it marked in red on the slide. In case you get a booking for a one-on-one meeting, a red notification will appear on the conversation button in the lower menu bar where you can accept it. All booked meetings are also saved and will be visible under the conversations button marked in red. If you see a notification of a meeting, move to the conversation button and press chat. Then activate that chat by pressing accept from the upper left corner of the view. If you have any technical issues, again, please contact the workshop person, and you can find the number and email at the end of the agenda. Also, if you have any questions about today's seminar, please feel free to send them to both the contact or Enterprise Estonia and Innovation Norway. You will still have all the contacts here on the screen. So again, thank you for tuning in and enjoy the matchmaking session.